cell phones. And please stand for the posting of the colors and the playing of our national anthem.
Colors. Present. Arms. Arms. About. Face. Present. Arms. Order. Arms. About. Face. Colors. Colors turn. Art.
Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated. And now I'd like to welcome Professor Rhea Ballard-Thrower to start us off with a welcome and introduction.
I haven't even said anything yet. Good morning. Once again, my name is Rhea Ballard-Thrower, and I'm the Executive Director of the University Libraries, and it is a pleasure to welcome you this morning on behalf of President Frederick, who we believe will be here later this afternoon, and the administration and the librarians and the archivists and the staff and everyone here at the University Libraries. We want to thank you for coming to the program today. We are very, very excited to host you. Now, I have to be honest that this program would not have happened except for the amazing work of one person, and that is Dr. Lopez Matthews. Yeah. Now, if you have a chance to look at his bio, it's extremely impressive. You know, he's an adjunct faculty member at another university, and he has degrees from Coppin State, from Howard. He's always asked to be a presenter. He is a published author, articles and books, but what we're the proudest of is that he is director of the Center for what we call affectionately Digital Howard, and he is going to talk about some of that today too. But what happened was approximately about a year ago, Dr. Matthews approached me because I've been in this position almost a year. And he said, guess what? We are almost finished with digitizing the materials from the ROTC. Do you want to see them? And of course now, you have to imagine this. You're putting a historian with a legal researcher together looking at old documents. I mean, you know, it can't get any better, right? And so we're going through the computer and I'm reading letters from vets from World War II about what their experiences were like being a person of color and seeing the first photos of female cadets who were persons of color. It was just amazing. And so I immediately said, oh my gosh, we have got to do a program. Okay, so of course my team who works with me totally understands, and when I say we, that typically means you. But I provide all the support and all that kind of stuff. But I want to let you know that this program today is actually very special to me. And it has a lot to do with, if it's the photo, oh. Okay, I'll just keep talking because of the photo you're about to see in a few minutes, okay? So what happens is in the photo, you're going to see two gentlemen in a photo. And one is Officer Rodriguez, and the other gentleman in the photo is my father, Emerson Ballard Sr. And my father is the one in the chair, oh, he went by quick, was one of the most upstanding, classy, funny, I mean, just coolest guys I have ever known in my life. And in fact, I laugh at this photo because this is in the middle of the Korean War. And as you may see my father chilling in his t-shirt, rocking on a chair. This was classic my father. And so that's one of the reasons why I'm here today, because this is personal for me, okay? As the daughter of an Army vet, I'm also the wife of a U.S. Marine. I truly, truly thank you for the service that you have provided for us. And this gives us an opportunity today to say thank you. You make it possible for us to just go day to day and not even pause and think about how safe and secure we are. But those of us who are not in the military service, today we want to take this time to pause, to thank you, and to say how much appreciative we are of all that you do for us. Thank you.
So, I'd like to, again, echo what Professor Ballard Thrower said, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Lopez Matthews, and I am the manager of the Digital Production Center here in the Howard University Libraries and the Moorland-Spingarn Research Center. And as you just heard, we digitized several documents related to Howard University and the military. And if you turn your programs to the last page, you will see there is a link there. And if you go to that link, you will find our digital collections related to the armed forces. So we have the ledgers from the original military department started by Oliver Otis Howard here at Howard in 1869. And you have the Howard University Men and Women in the Armed Forces collection, which is a collection of over 100 letters from Howard alumni who were serving in the armed forces. So about 100 photographs of Howard alum while they were serving in World War II. And so they talk about the feeling of loneliness, they talk about the racism, they talk about the lack of racism that they experienced while they're serving on the front lines. So that's a very interesting collection. So if you only get a chance to look at one collection, I would recommend that you look at the Howard University Men and Women in the Armed Forces collection because it's an amazing collection. We also have documents from Thomas Montgomery Gregory, who led the Howard Players, and he served in World War I, and he has documents from Fort Des Moines, which was the first officer training school for African American officers in the military, which was started by Howard University. Well, the impetus came from Howard University students, so we have those documents. And we have a lot more collections. Some of them are mentioned on the back of your program, like I said earlier. And without further ado, I would like to introduce our lecturer for today, Dr. Roger Davidson. He is an associate professor at Bowie State University, and he was also my undergraduate professor at Coppin State University. He is a military historian and also a Howard University alum himself. And so I'd like to welcome Dr. Roger Davidson.
All right, good morning. It's good to see all these smiling faces and all the cadets and the cadre out here and the library staff. I'd like to offer greetings to President Frederick, who I know is not here at the moment, and as well to the Honorable Secretary Togo West and General Lester Lyles, as well as to Professor Rhea Ballard and the library staff. Thank you for this occasion. I'd also like to greet the members and the alumni, if there are any in the room, of the mighty Bison Battalion, as well as the alumni and the members of the Air Force ROTC Detachment 130. In fact, I had the pleasure back in 1982 of doing my summer camp with a member from this detachment. Oh, and congratulations to Major and soon to be Lieutenant Colonel Tiana Jackson. This year we celebrate the sesquicentennial of Howard University. This year we also celebrate the centennial of America's entry into World War I. Through an examination of the contributions of Howard University to the war effort, we can clearly see how these anniversaries intersect at a historical juncture that highlights the sacrifices of African Americans to national defense. Indeed, Howard's service to democracy through military service since World War I provides an exemplary record of black service to this country. For example, through the combined training efforts of the Bison Battalion and Air Force ROTC Detachment 130, Howard University has probably produced more black general officers than any other school. Additionally, the university has provided dentists, doctors, nurses, lawyers, and chaplains for all of the recent conflicts and interwar periods. As we know, black military and naval service predates the founding of Howard University. African Americans served and sacrificed for American freedom from the War of Independence to present conflicts. Moreover, African Americans used their service to the nation, particularly during the larger conflicts, to demand freedom and equality. After every war, there was an increased agitation for rights. During the War of Independence, the Revolutionary War, approximately 5,000 black men served in the Continental Army and an unknown number in the Navy and state militias. There were also women who served as cooks, laundresses, laborers, and spies. After independence, veterans and civilians petitioned for freedom because, you know, there was still slavery in all 13 states, those former colonies. They were petitioning for freedom and equality based upon black service. The North will eventually grant that under gradual emancipation, but the South was dedicated and wedded to slavery. And therefore, some of those veterans will gain freedom for their service, but the majority of black people will remain enslaved. During the War of 1812, African Americans also served. They served in state militias and the Navy. Conversely, though, a significant number of enslaved blacks enlisted with British forces, which will prompt the Upper South slaveholders to discuss the emancipation of a possibly hostile population. That just goes to show that they're going to serve one way or another. Either you can use them for your benefit, or you could suffer at their hands. During the Civil War, the connection between freedom and military service was obvious. To quote Frederick Douglass, "Once let the black man get upon his person the brass letters U.S. Let him get an eagle on his button and a musket on his shoulder, and bullets in his pocket, and there is no power on earth which can deny that he had earned the right of citizenship in the United States." Approximately 178,000 African Americans will serve in segregated Army units and 19,000 in an integrated Navy. Well, technically integrated Navy. Despite segregation, discrimination, unequal pay in the Army, and ill treatment in the Navy, blacks will serve honorably. 25 received the Medal of Honor. And after the war, soldiers and sailors, as well as civilians, once again pushed for equality. Of course, freedom came because the war ended slavery. But when I talk about a push, let's use Washington, D.C. as an example. Washington, D.C. Provided more black soldiers than it did white soldiers for the Union cause. When these soldiers came home, them and their civilian counterparts demanded equal treatment. And in this city, when it came to such things as streetcars that were segregated, they were able to win concessions. At the start of the Spanish-American War in 1898, African Americans again answered the call. In addition to the 4 black regular Army units, black militia companies mobilized for action. Once again, they served honorably, and again, they faced the same outcome. Nonetheless, black soldiers continued to serve the flag, though it did not serve them. Through my limited research, though my limited research did not uncover Howard grads in the ranks, because Howard's up and running by now, during the Spanish-American War, I would like to note that Brigadier General Benjamin O. Davis Sr., the first black general, briefly matriculated here at Howard. During his senior year in high school, he took a few courses here. His parents then wanted him to go to Howard. He decided he'd rather serve his country, and he enlisted in a volunteer infantry regiment, which started his career. Shortly after the outbreak of war in Europe in 1914, Americans began to realize that the United States would be drawn into that conflict. As white America mobilized, black Americans began to petition the government officials for greater inclusion in the armed forces. More specifically, Army officer training camps. Taking the lead in this effort was Howard University. The faculty and students at Howard understood the link between patriotism, and in this case, military service, and democratic inclusion. Their patriotism was more than national, it was race-based. And that would be the same for previous wars. They realized that if they served, if they sacrificed, like Frederick Douglass said, there's no power on earth that can deny you citizenship. You know how they like to say freedom isn't free? Yeah. In an effort to secure commissions for college men, the students and faculty created the Central Committee of Negro Men, CCNCM. The committee sent members to various campuses and communities to obtain potential recruits for officer training, and they wanted it to be housed at Howard. 1 month after America's entry into the War Department approved the creation of a black officers training camp. However, they placed it in Des Moines, Iowa. 200 of the initial 1,200 officer candidates came from Howard. Of course, other HBCUs provided theirs as well. The Howard candidates also included faculty as well as students. In fact, Charles Hamilton Houston, the famous lawyer who will start the strategies that will destroy segregation, Charles Hamilton Houston at the time was a young instructor and at Howard and part of the Howard contingent. In addition to the organizational and recruiting efforts, Howard University served on the schools designated to house a vocational detachment to train radio operators and carpenters, and later an A section of the Student Army Training Corps, the SATC. So we have now a vocational training unit here, as well as an officer training unit. The SATC is the predecessor of the Reserve Officer Training Corps. In November 1918, with the armistice, the War Department disbanded the SATC. However, in December 1918, the War Department created the Reserve Officer Training Corps, ROTC. Howard University's ROTC unit will continue to produce Army officers in the interwar years, as well as provide educational and teaching opportunities for veterans. Based upon the literature, it appears that there were 440 officers produced here at Howard in those interwar years. 2 veterans who will make a name at Howard are Rayford Logan and Charles Hamilton Houston. In fact, their personal papers and memoirs provide significant insights into the treatment of black officers and soldiers during World War I. Despite the minor inroads made militarily during World War I, black veterans came home to more segregation, racial discrimination, and violence. In fact, Howard vets returning to Washington, D.C. Were able to witness the race riot of 1919. Nonetheless, black service, and that was 380,000 approximately served in World War I, This service sparked demands for equality. At the forefront were the World War I veterans, and in particular you have men like Houston and Logan. Logan, who will become a famous history professor. Wish I had a chance to study under him. In the late 1930s, as war clouds grew over Europe and Asia, Americans again prepared for the possibility of war. Howard mobilized. President Mordecai Johnson created a committee of education and national defense, and the purpose of the committee was to organize the university community for service to the country. The committee created subcommittees on women and defense, education and morale, first aid, and a war-focused curriculum development. More significantly, the Bison Battalion geared up for war. Howard would provide not only infantry officers, but the medical school and the schools of dentistry, nursing, law, and divinity provided officer candidates as well. Interestingly, Howard received permission to establish a civilian pilot training program as a means of providing flight training for Army pilot candidates. You could say this is sort of the seed for the Air Force ROTC that will come here. In fact, Commander Wesley Brown, I don't know if any of you are familiar with naval history. Commander Wesley A. Brown was the first black midshipman at the Naval Academy, not the first black midshipman, but the first to graduate. The others had been chased out or forced out, and he'll graduate during the war. But Wesley A. Brown chose Howard first. He came to Howard, and then he matriculated to and transferred to the Naval Academy. He came here with the hopes of becoming a fighter pilot, and then left to become a naval officer. There was another gentleman by the name of John Fowler who came here through ROTC. There were problems getting people through West Point. They were also trying to force African Americans out. John Fowler came here, went through ROTC here, and when contacted by a black congressman, went on to try to break up that color barrier and some of the issues at West Point. Howard also served as the Army Specialized Training Program station for the 2,515th Service Unit. The War Department created the Army Specialized Training Program and similar programs to train technical specialists for service overseas during World War II. The units were located on college campuses and utilized campus facilities and at times faculty. The 2,515th formed a club called the Prometheans. You can see their records on the website, Digital Howard. Like many of the ASTP units, the Prometheans were reassigned, unfortunately, to various units and shipped overseas before everything had been completed on the campuses. Most of the 2,515th ended up in the 1,318th Engineer Regiment and then served out their time in the war. After the war, they would come together for reunions. Now, with the end of World War II, African Americans came home fighting. So we had the Double V campaign. You go away fighting, you come back fighting. The fight against fascism in Europe and racism at home. So they came home fighting. The end of the war marked the start of the modern civil rights movement. At the head of that movement, at the forefront, was Howard University and its graduates. If you take a look at the second and third stanzas of our alma mater, it highlights Howard's continual commitment to serve not only the black community, but the country. There she stands for truth and right, sending forth her rays of light, clad in robes of majesty. O Howard, we sing of thee. Be thou still our guide and stay, leading us from day to day. Make us true and leal and strong, ever bold to battle wrong. The service that Howard offered the armed forces and national defense in earlier wars continued in Korea, Vietnam, and the present-day conflict. At times, the contribution took on a questioning nature. Is this a just war? Because there were those who questioned that. Some during World War I, others during Vietnam. Should we be fighting? Other times, it was an unwavering call to duty. The history of Howard University's contribution to American defense is still a work in progress. Historians still need to assess the ways in which the university provided service to in the defense of democracy. Inasmuch Moorland-Spingarn Research Center's efforts through Digital Howard will greatly aid researchers seeking to tell that story. And I hope each and every one of you will visit Digital Howard, will offer your contributions to Digital Howard. Even the young ones here who are coming through, once you get commissioned, save your records. Those who may have had a prior service, save your records. Let Howard have them, because 30, 40, 50 years down the road, a historian will ask, what did Howard do in the fight against terror? Thank you very much.
So now we'll start our question and answer portion. So if anyone has any questions, please stand and ask.
Yes, sir.
Sir. Secretary West.
Thank you for that. That was excellent. And,
Thank you.
I hope we can hear some more from you on that, especially on Howard's contribution in Vietnam.
Right.
Which is probably close to some of our hearts. Among other things that Howard did was we lost people there.
We did. We lost a lot.
Several members in the Army ROTC with me who were left there on the battlefield.
Well, thank you, thank you. And that's in every war. Howard, the sacrifice wasn't just in effort, but in life. So were those that were left on the various battlefields, Europe, Asia, and Korea, Vietnam. Yeah, thanks.
Yes.
In light of your preparation for this lecture, did you come across any female veterans and military?
I'm glad you asked that. She wanted to know if I had come across any records with regard to women in the military and female veterans. This research is going on along with other research that I'm doing, therefore it's still in its early phases. And I have to say that is a gap that needs to be filled. I know they're there. I've seen stuff with regard to the nurse corps, because I'm looking at World War II and nurses and the contribution of nurses. But still, when it comes to World War II and the Women's Auxiliary Corps and Women's Army Corps, when it comes to Korea and Vietnam, that needs to be, we need to see more of that. And so, no, I didn't, but that's because I really didn't get a chance to hone in on that.
There have, of course, been some black women journalists, not necessarily in Howard. I just saw Clara Enders.
Oh, yeah. 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 And there have been quite a few black female generals and admirals, actually. In fact, what made me so proud when we talk about the hostage situation with the pirates off of Somalia, when the president put out the call to have Navy SEALs, our Navy SEAL sniper, take out the pirates, he called a black female admiral. And she said, I'll take care of it. So yeah, women do play a crucial role in the military, present day. And like I said, even in the past, prior to Howard, women served, you think cooks, laundresses, but they served as spies. They put their lives on the line. And then when they could get into uniform, they did not hesitate. We have now women fighter pilots. When I was in Air Force ROTC, we were told that women could not adequately handle the controls of a fighter plane. They've been proven wrong. So, yes, sir.
Yeah, that was an excellent presentation.
Thank you.
Besides Digital Howard, is that available for wider dissemination? That story alone would be great for Air University, it'd be great for the counterpart in the Navy and the Army, Coast Guard, the Marines. That story needs to be told for everybody, not just Howard.
Thank you.
Well, Digital Howard is available for everybody. It's a nationwide web. It is it's an open site, so it's open source, so anyone can access it from anywhere in the world. Actually, the majority of people who come to Digital Howard, coincidentally, are from Japan. I guess they have a lot of interest in what we're doing here at Howard. But so it's international, so anyone can see it, and you can share the links and have people view them and download.
To help make sure that people are aware of it.
share the links to the website on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, wherever you can share to have people come view the site and look up the information. You talked about women in the military. There are several letters from black women who served in World War II on Digital Howard, and they talk about their experiences in the military. Some are quite sad, and then some are interesting because they say, oh, I've had no problems. And they look out for me and they take care of me, and there are no issues whatsoever on the space. I was so scared to come here, and things are great. So that's why I recommended reading the letters, because you get to read from their own mouths what they went through. So I just wanted to.
Thank you very much. Well, thank you all very much. I know we have other things to get to. It was great being here, and enjoy the afternoon.
All right. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Cadet Colin Pate, and I will be your MC for 2 Air Force ROTC Detachment 130 presentations today. The promotion of Major Tiana E. Jackson to Lieutenant Colonel, and the presentation of the Meritorious Service Medal to Lieutenant Colonel Richard A. Greenlee. I'd like to take this opportunity to recognize any ROTC alumni, if you would please stand. Are any ROTC alumni in the room? Yeah, there we go. Thank you. I would also like to welcome our civilian and military distinguished guests in attendance today, which include Secretary West and General Lyles. I'd also like to introduce Major Jackson's family here today, which include her parents John and Tiala Strother and her son Alexander Jackson. We are pleased to have with us today Lieutenant Colonel retired Jarrell Joyner, former commander of Air Force ROTC Detachment 130 and current Air Force Junior ROTC Senior Aerospace Science Instructor, as the presiding officer for Major Jackson's promotion ceremony. Lieutenant Colonel Joyner, if you please come forward.
So it's good to be back. Good to be back. I have some stories that I could share from Junior ROTC, but that is for another time, another day, but it's been interesting. But what I will say is my short time that I've been at Junior ROTC, I would say it has shown me how proud I am of you that are sitting in these seats today, that are wearing these POC bars or whatever the case may be. I am extremely proud of you because now I see where you came from and where you're at today, and it's almost amazing to see the growth that you guys matriculate through that time of going through high school and then starting college, and when you graduate from college, it is truly an extreme change that happens. Trust me, it is. Like I said, I could share some stories, but today is Tiana's day, and so I won't. So, Major Jackson, why I'm here today. So, of course, we've known that she got promoted almost since she arrived. She arrived about almost a year ago, and about a month after she arrived, I got a letter congratulating her that she got promoted. But of course, there's some time frame that has to go in between there before you actually get an opportunity to pin on your rank. And so today is that day, and I'm so elated to have an opportunity to do that for her. So let's just give you a brief synopsis of Tiana, because she told me 5 minutes, that's all you got. So I'm going to brief, because everybody knows that I can talk. But anyway, so Tiana, she went to school at Tennessee State University, and I'm gonna stop right there. So, and when Tiana came to us or whatever, when we were trying to find a person to fill the void, because we had a position open, we had like two or three people that applied, actually about 4. And so we narrowed it down to 2 people, Tiana and another young man. And so we're looking through our records, and we're going through there, and we was like, Wisconsin? And I was like, is she black? So which is fine. So the first black person that I met from Wisconsin, thank you. And so I said, and then she said, Tennessee State University. So we always joke her. So she had to go, re-glue, get re-glue her black, roots or whatever. So that's where she went to Tennessee State, which is a HBCU, by the way, for those who don't know. Actually, one of the finest generals that I know him personally, General Fig Newton, graduated from that university as well. I'm sure she knew of that or whatever the case would be. So it is a definitely fine institution. So anyway, she matriculated her career, her time at Tennessee State University. She actually was there on her RTC scholarship, and she had a HBCU scholarship, which is great because a lot of you guys sitting in the audience today have HBCU scholarships. So she matriculated her time there, and then she graduated, and then she went on to intelligence school down in Goodfellow Air Force Base, okay? So she did that, and then she graduated, and then she started, Tiana likes to go overseas. She's like, look, I know enough about the United States. I want to get out of here. So she was in the Air Force, she was on the active duty Air Force only 5 years, but almost all of her time in active duty she spent overseas and doing some great things, some intelligence work for us. And then she got off active duty. Now not most of us, because I'm retired, praise God, but most of the people who get out of active duty, they typically go on and do something else with their lives, and they don't actually stay attached to the military. But Tiana decided that she wanted to stay attached to the military, so she spent the bulk of her career, a bulk of her reserve career, actually down in Langley Air Force Base as a reservist down there, taking care of some intelligence work for us there. And then she was up here. So for those who don't know, she's not only soon to be Lieutenant Colonel Tiana Jackson, but she's also Dr. Tiana Jackson. She has a PhD from American University. And so that's kind of how I guess we kind of got attached, because she wanted to come back to the DC area. She had been up here studying, and she wanted to get back up to the DC area. So that's how she kind of ended up back up here. Now, Miss Pewsley, Captain France, he's gone now, and Sergeant Troxler, we were all in the office, and we were talking about these two people that we were trying to decide, and she was like, well, we looked over their records, and we had studied them, and we kind of knew, let's just give them a call, and we're all going to sit here in the office, and we're going to talk to them and see which one that we like the best, or whatever case, or, the one who will be the best fit for our situation here at Howard University. And so we call her, and it was a very interesting conversation, because she was like, we talked about some things and we had a good conversation. Then she was like, well, I don't know if I really want to take the job yet, so I'll have to let you know. And I'm like, what? Didn't you apply? So anyway, it took her a few days, but she ended up calling us back and letting us know that she indeed wanted to take the job. And I will tell you that this unit has been better for it ever since she arrived. She has been not only a great leader, but a great subordinate. And a lot of times people want to lead. They're an officer, and they want to lead, and they want to lead, and they want to lead. But good officership comes from being a good subordinate and being able to take orders from somebody, being able to and being able to see things that need to be done, and not me having to go tell Tiana this needs to be done, but she's seeing that it needs to be done herself and taking it on and say, okay, sir, I'm going to take this on. And then she comes back, hey, and I ask her, hey, Tiana, we need to do this. Oh, sir, I've already done it. That's the kind of officers that we're looking for, and that's the kind of officers that are sitting over there today. And so I am very, very proud of her. She's done an outstanding job for this unit. I'm sure every cadet could get up here and say wonderful things about her today, but we don't have time. But so without further ado, I want to have Tiana come forward. So we're going to go along with the promotion ceremony. Yes.
Thank you, Lieutenant Colonel Joyner, Major Jackson. Ladies and gentlemen, please stand for the reading of the promotion order. Attention to order. The President of the United States, acting upon the recommendation of the Secretary of the Air Force, has placed special trust and confidence in the patriotism, integrity, and abilities of Major Tiana E. Jackson. In view of these special qualities and her demonstrated potential to serve in the higher grade, Major Jackson is promoted to the grade of Lieutenant Colonel in the United States Air Force, effective 1st of September 2017 by order of the Secretary of the Air Force. Ladies and gentlemen, you may now be seated. Major Jackson has asked that her son and parents pin on her new rank. Please come forward at this time. Ladies and gentlemen, please stand as Lieutenant Colonel Joyner will now administer the oath of office.
Anyway, raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name.
I, Tiana Jackson,
I've been appointed Lieutenant Colonel
having been appointed Lieutenant Colonel
in the United States Air Force.
in the United States Air Force,
And solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support and defend
that I will support and defend
the Constitution of the United
the
States
Constitution of the United States
against all enemies,
against all enemies,
foreign and domestic,
foreign and domestic,
and I will bear true faith
that I will bear true faith
and allegiance to the same,
and allegiance to the same,
and that I take this obligation freely
that I take this obligation freely
without any mental reservation
without any mental
or
reservation
purpose of evasion,
or purpose of evasion,
and that I will will and faithfully
and that I will well and faithfully
discharge the duties
discharge the duties
upon which I am about to enter.
upon which I am about to enter.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is my honor to introduce Lieutenant Colonel Jackson. All right.
All right.
Hey, would you like
guys
to-
have a seat.
Yeah, that's- Would you like to deliver brief remarks?
Yeah, real quick. Thank you guys for all coming. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for all the cadets who have done the honor guard, and Cadet Pate and Cadet Tam for helping out with this, as well as Cadet Santiago. I really appreciate it. This is such an honor. It's been, over a year since I knew I was going to put on Lieutenant Colonel, or maybe about a year since I knew I was going to put on Lieutenant Colonel, and I finally get to. It also means a lot to do it here at HBCU, so I really appreciate it. And thanks to the library for letting me tag on to your ceremony. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
And now, Colonel Gregory Coleman, Director of Staff, Joint Force Headquarters, District of Columbia, Air National Guard, will now present the Meritorious Service Medal to Lieutenant Colonel Richard A. Greenlee. Colonel Coleman and Lieutenant Colonel Greenlee, please come forward. Would everyone please stand for the presentation of the award? Attention to order. To all who shall see these presents, greeting. This is to certify that the President of the United States of America, authorized by Executive Order 16 January 1969, has awarded the Meritorious Service Medal to Lieutenant Colonel Richard A. Greenlee for meritorious service 30 December 2014 to 24 June 2017. Lieutenant Colonel Richard A. Greenlee, Jr. distinguished himself in the performance of outstanding service to the United States as Director of Personnel, Joint Force Headquarters, District of Columbia Air National Guard, D.C. Armory, Washington, D.C. During this period, Colonel Greenlee was directly responsible for the personnel and manpower management and expertly provided strength and accountability reports, advised on personal matters, and directed interagency coordination for the District of Columbia Air National Guard. He was instrumental in coordinating standby forces for the annual State of the Union addresses and meticulously planned the joint reception, staging, onward movement, and integration process for the 58th presidential inauguration that ultimately received and deployed more than 7,000 guardsmen from 44 states and territories. Additionally, working on the staff of the headquarters, Air Force, he has brilliantly engaged our active duty counterparts in addressing Guard personnel issues and concerns. Furthermore, Colonel Greenlee has served as an invaluable mentor and leader, which increased organizational effectiveness in the District of Columbia Air National Guard. The singularly distinctive accomplishments of Colonel Greenlee reflect great credit upon himself and the United States Air Force. And now, Professor Rhea Ballard, correction please, Dr. Matthews will introduce Professor Rhea Ballard Thrower. Thank you. Please be seated.
So I'm going to tell you more about the collection. We've moved swiftly with time.
We can do the Persian rifle demonstration.
That's perfect.
Yes, I would like to introduce the Pershing Rifles who are going to do a presentation.
National Society of Persian Rifles was founded in 1894 by General of the Armies, John J. Pershing. The purpose of the National Society of Persian Rifles is to develop to the highest degree possible the outstanding traits of leadership, military science, military bearing, and discipline within the framework of a military-oriented honorary fraternity. Our motto is perfection is the only acceptable standard. Left order, hunt! Forward, up! Forward, up! Reset. Hunt! Or hunt! Forward! Hunt!
Wonderful. So, surprise. So, I just wanted to mention that in setting up this program and in developing this program, we thought, okay, we're going to celebrate Howard and the armed forces. And we realized that to do that, we also had to recognize people who are representations of what Howard represented to the armed forces. And so that's how we chose our honorees, retired General Lester Lau of the Air Force and former Secretary of the Army, Togo West Jr., who are both alumni of Howard University. And so I would like to ask if they had any remarks they would like to share. You said no? Or any thoughts?
Thank you. So assure me I'm not just filling time up here, right? You actually want to hear me say something.
Yes, of course.
General Lyles, once again, has pulled rank. I'm supposed to go first because somehow the secretary is more senior, when in fact, I noticed when I came in here, there's a lot of Air Force here. This makes this an Air Force show, and you should be going first. That having been said, I will take 2 minutes to say 3 things. First, thank you for doing this. It is for 2 alumni, one of whom was his wife, Gail, who is an alumna of the law school where we met. A wonderful thing to be invited back here to the place where, out there on the lawn, we looked up at the clock tower, a Founders Library, stood, even though I was an engineering student, nonetheless, at Frederick Douglass Hall and entered it for certainly our first year classes and some of our second year, and got to walk around, and yes, on, I guess, ROTC day, put on our uniforms, because in those days, every male took ROTC and knew that we would be subject to service. Secondly, we're proud of you guys. You look good, you sound good, you make us feel good. Thirdly, it's a pleasure to be here with Lester Lyles. It is not every person who, in whatever service, makes his way all the way from second lieutenant to 4-star general. You need to hear from him now.
Secretary West, Gail, it's an honor being here. It's always an honor to get back to Howard University. Now, I have to mention that I've said this to Colonel Joyner in the past. I've said it to now Colonel Greenlee. I live here in the D.C. area. I live in Northern Virginia in Vienna. I come downtown for various activities, whether it's the White House, the Pentagon, NASA, that I'm involved in. And so I would be honored anytime there's an opportunity to come talk to the cadets. And not just Detachment 130. As some of you know, I'm the chairman of the board of USAA, and some of you are USAA members out there. I'd love to talk to, there's one hand back there, at least there's one member. I'd love to talk to the Army ROTC cadets or anybody else for that matter. I'm very, very proud of my association with Howard University. And I would tell you, and I mean this really honestly, I'm not just saying this, it's always an honor for me, and actually my wife, who unfortunately just had surgery so she couldn't get out today, it's always an honor to be in the presence of Secretary Togo West and his lovely wife, Gail. We've been fortunate to be involved in lots of different things in the past. And to some extent, I actually worked for Secretary West when he was the Secretary of the Army for a period of time. I was, as a 3-star, running the Star Wars program, Ballistic Missile Defense Organization for the United States, now Missile Defense Agency. And I've had a couple of occasions to talk to him about something that's now even more important for our country and for the world. So it is a pleasure for me to be back here. And Dr. Matthews, thank you very much for pulling all this together. Thank you for the speakers, and thank you for the opportunity. And thank you for the Pershing rifles. My 4 years in ROTC here were not doing the normal Air Force ROTC things. I served for 4 years on the Andrew D. Turner Memorial Drill Team, where we used Springfield 1903 rifles, the same rifles you saw there, but they were chrome-plated, and we had 12-inch bayonets. And so I love doing those sort of things, a little bit more dangerous than what these guys demonstrated. So thank you very much. It's an honor being here. God bless you. Congratulations to Lieutenant Colonel Jackson.
So we have, sorry, I'm a little short, so I need to bring things down to my level here. But so we actually have 2 things that will be presented to Secretary West and General Lyle. And so one of those things is a special commemorative edition of Howard the Long Walk that was produced by Howard University about a decade or so ago. But we have special commemorative limited edition issues that we would like to present to you from the library. And they're quite heavy. So don't be surprised when you get it.
This is called putting a rose between 2 thorns.
So I would like to mention, because I neglected to mention, that there is an exhibit in the lobby. It goes counterclockwise as you leave the room, talking about Howard and its contribution to the armed forces. So take some time and look at those. Dr. Davidson mentioned the Prometheans. They are a collection on Digital Howard. I forgot to mention that. And we also have several artifacts that they donated to Howard University because they donated their materials to Howard, and so we have them in Moorland-Spingarn. And some of them are on display in the back case after you leave the room. So check that out. Look at their collection on Digital Howard. I am. Oh. And we also have U.S. Mint military medals on display in the lobby as well. So take the time to look at those medals, and you can also purchase them if you would like them. They're very nice. They are actually very nice. And so I invite you to do that. And we also have a reception that is afterward in our Channing Pollock room. So make sure you check that out as well.
Yeah. So at this time, we're going to partially conclude the program because the president's on his way, but he's running late and he wants to give the medals out. So, so at this stage, we actually have refreshments. And so we would actually encourage you can just go on back to the Channing Pollock room and then just get refreshments, and then we'll let you know once the president arrives, and then that way he can go ahead and present the medals for our distinguished guests. So thank you so much for coming to our event today, and we are excited to host you.
Flexibility is the key. Thanks, buddy.